Hello and welcome. Today we're going to explore one of the most powerful ideas in all of Stoic philosophy. One that's deceptively simple, endlessly relevant, and quietly transformative. The dichotomy of control. You've probably felt it before, that frustrating blur between what's up to you and what isn't. The meeting that didn't go how you wanted. The silence after a message you hoped would be returned. The way your body feels when stress builds up and sleep won't come. And still you try to fix it all. You try to think your way out, control your way through, but it never really works, does it? To an ancient Stoic, the way we carry our modern anxieties might seem curious. We agonize over traffic, over unread texts, over algorithm changes and inbox overloads. We lie in bed, minds racing through what we should have said, or what might happen next week. And the Stoic would look at us not with judgment, but with a kind of calm clarity and say, that's not yours to carry. So before we go any deeper, take a moment to follow or subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on, but only if you genuinely find this content valuable. And feel free to post where in the world you're listening from. It's always comforting to know we're not alone in these quiet hours. So wherever you are and whatever you're doing, I invite you to lend an ear for a little while. And let's explore this idea together. You're lying in bed. You've already tried to fall asleep maybe more than once, but instead of rest, your mind serves up a carousel of mental tabs you forgot to close. Small regrets, future scenarios, loops of thought that go nowhere. Now is where you begin. You breathe, you pause, you ask, what's actually mine to control right now? That question, simple as it is, marks the beginning of freedom. The Stoics called this idea the dichotomy of control. Epictetus taught that some things are up to us, our beliefs, our judgments, our choices, and others are not. Our bodies, our reputations, our circumstances, the future. It's not a theory, it's a sorting mechanism for peace. You take stock of your night so far. Maybe you've been trying to control the day that's already ended, what you said, how it was received. Or maybe you've been reaching for control over a day that hasn't started yet, how others will respond, what tomorrow will bring. Neither is available to you now. What is? This breath, this posture, this attitude. That's it, and that's everything. You feel your body still tense, the shoulders holding more weight than they need. You let them drop, even just a little. You allow yourself to be here, not in what happened, not in what might happen, but in what is. Epictetus reminded his students, some things are in our control and others not. If you think you can control what is not your own, you will be disturbed. So what happens when you let go? When you decide that is not mine, what shifts? You stop spinning the narrative of what if. You stop reviewing the day like a courtroom trial. You stop outsourcing your peace to things that don't belong to you. And in that moment, you begin to reclaim your mind. You recall the ancient image Epictetus used. Life is like being on a ship. You don't control the wind or the direction of the current, but you do control how you steer, your grip on the wheel, your discipline, your clarity. Tonight you choose to steer. You choose not to chase every thought that appears. You choose not to tighten around things that were never promised to you. You choose to focus on the one thing you've had all along, your own response. You're not passive, you're precise, and precision gives you peace. You think back to today. What did you try to control that wasn't yours? Was it someone's mood? A decision above your pay grade? The pace of progress in a situation that simply needed more time. You recognize it now, not as a failure, but as a chance to practice, to return to what is truly yours, your judgments, your values, your choices. You take another breath, this time slower, a little deeper. You're not escaping the day. You're closing the part of it that doesn't belong in your hands. You whisper to yourself quietly, kindly, this is not mine. I let it go. The Stoics weren't emotionless, they felt deeply. But they didn't dwell. They filtered, they sorted, They refused to give their inner peace over to what lay outside their sphere of control. And now so do you. The next thought that arises, maybe it's about work or love or uncertainty, you greet it gently. You ask, is this mine to control? If yes, you make a plan, a small, doable action, and then you rest. If not, you acknowledge it. You thank it for the visit. And then you let it pass like weather. Because your mind is not a sponge, it is a gatekeeper, and you, right now, are standing watch. So you return again, to the breath, to the body, to the space between effort and letting go. You're doing what the Stoics did, not reciting philosophy, but living it. In the most important place of all, your mind at night in the dark when no one is watching. This is what's really yours tonight. And it's enough. You feel it rising again. The tension that builds when the day doesn't go your way. A plan fell through. Someone said something sharp. Or maybe nothing went wrong at all, but still there's a restless energy in your chest. A tug at the edge of sleep. This is when the Stoics practiced most. Not when things were smooth, but when chaos knocked. Epictetus, born into slavery, lived without privilege or comfort. He couldn't change his master's will, his living conditions, or even his physical health. He walked with a crippled leg for much of his life, but what he could control he refined with relentless discipline. His mind. He would remind himself and his students over and over, it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. Pause there. It's not the chaos itself, it's your interpretation of it. You apply this now, gently, to your own unease. You feel the weight of the week or maybe of tomorrow, and you realize you've been telling yourself a story that everything must go smoothly, that nothing should feel uncertain, that peace requires control. But tonight you try something else. You reach for Epictetus's compass, his internal guide, and begin to recalibrate. You close your eyes and say, this disturbance is a signal. It shows me where I'm clinging, and it reminds me to return to what I can actually shape. You reflect on what today gave you, not in terms of wins or losses, but in terms of opportunity. Did you get to choose how you responded? Yes. Did you stay true to your values? Maybe, or maybe not, but here you are, choosing again. This is the essence of Stoic control, not mastery over outcomes, but mastery over your posture toward them. Imagine Epictetus sitting with his students. No temple, no throne, just a modest space, his words quietly dismantling illusions. He'd look you in the eye and say, you are disturbed because you think something outside you is responsible for your peace. It never was. And here in your own room, you feel the truth settle. You start to see your day not as a performance to perfect, but as a canvas to engage with. Some strokes are messy, some elegant, but the brush was always in your hand. Even when the paint didn't behave, you revisit one specific moment that bothered you. Maybe a comment, a silence, a task that didn't go well. You pause and ask, did I do what was within my control? Did I meet that moment with awareness, effort, and clarity? If yes, then you release it. You did what you could. If not, then you learn, without shame. You say, next time I choose differently, and then you release it anyway. Because guilt is just another attempt at controlling the past. You breathe again, slower now. You see how Epictetus used this principle not as theory, but as armor. Not to wall himself off, but to move through life freely. When insulted, he reminded himself, the insult doesn't belong to me unless I pick it up. When circumstances changed, he didn't beg for comfort. He asked, where is my opportunity here? And you do the same. That delay, that conflict, that imperfection in your day, it isn't an enemy, it's a mirror. It shows you what you can influence. And it teaches you where your peace ends and your expectations begin. So you adjust. You stop waiting for things to be different. You stop needing everyone to understand. You stop hoping that life will cooperate before you feel whole. Instead, you turn inward. You find the only compass that never fails. Your own judgment, your own values, your own calm attention to what's real. Even now the thought returns, but what if tomorrow brings more chaos? And you answer as Epictetus might, then I will meet it with what I have, with presence, with poise, with choice. You don't fear the future when you remember who you are in the face of it. And that's the deeper message. The dichotomy of control isn't just about sorting what's yours and what isn't. It's about knowing you have enough within you to meet whatever happens. You are not empty-handed. You are not powerless. You are not at the mercy of your circumstances. You are anchored, and as you settle into that awareness, your body responds. The tension eases, the jaw unclenches, the breath deepens. You may still feel the weight of your responsibilities, but you're no longer confusing them with your identity. You can hold what's yours, you can release what's not, and you can rest in the space between. Just like Epictetus did, night after night, without comfort, without certainty, but always with clarity. And now, so do you. You've let go of some tension. You've remembered what's yours to hold and what's not. But now comes one of the most delicate pieces of this practice. Letting go of how others see you. It's a subtle weight, this pressure. Maybe you don't even notice how tightly you carry it until night falls and your mind replays conversations, social cues, silences. Did I sound confident enough? Did they misunderstand me? What do they think of me now? This is where the Stoics return to a hard truth, wrapped in gentleness. Marcus Aurelius said, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." You let that sink in. The mind twists itself trying to manage what others might think, sculpting a version of you that will be pleasing, acceptable, uncriticized. But that version is always a few steps out of reach. It's a phantom, and chasing it costs you your peace. So tonight you choose to stop performing. You stop managing perception. You stop composing mental rebuttals. You stop rehearsing alternate versions of the day. You return to your own judgment. You ask simply, did I act with integrity? Not did they approve? Not did they praise me? Not even did they notice? Just this, was I honest? Was I kind? Was I guided by my principles rather than my ego? If yes, then rest. If not, then learn and try again tomorrow. But do not stay trapped in the loop of imagined judgment. That belongs to them, not to you. Seneca, who moved in the highest social circles of Rome, still warned against the instability of public opinion. What you think of yourself is much more important than what others think of you. He knew the applause of a crowd fades. He knew that admiration is rented, not owned. He knew that chasing image leads you away from essence. So he practiced anchoring his self-respect in action, not in admiration. You can do the same. You picture yourself walking through the day with a simple kind of clarity, not shrinking, not performing, just standing, firm in who you are, firm in what you value. And then when others respond, you let them. They can misunderstand, they can gossip, they can praise or ignore. None of it belongs in your hands. You do your own, you release it. It's not that you become indifferent to people. The Stoics weren't cold. Marcus was deeply compassionate. Seneca wrote about love and grief. Epictetus taught students with care and clarity, but they never outsourced their peace. They didn't give strangers the keys to their emotional stability. They didn't let fleeting opinions override steady principles. You breathe in that steadiness now. You say, I cannot control their thoughts, but I can control my focus. You say, I don't need to be seen a certain way to be whole. That's where freedom lives. And you remember, no one else is thinking about you as much as you think they are. People are busy, concerned with their own reputations, their own worries, their own little storms. You were never supposed to control how you appear in every mind. You were only meant to be true in your own. So you soften. You stop replaying the moment you stumbled. You stop analyzing the tone in their reply. You stop trying to write a version of yourself that everyone will accept. Instead, you return to your intention, to your integrity, to the quiet self who doesn't need an audience to feel complete. You whisper, I am not theirs to define. I belong to my own judgment. And that judgment is wise. That judgment is evolving. That judgment, like Marcus's, is rooted in self-examination and sincere effort. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. Because the truth is, no amount of praise can give you peace if you don't already approve of yourself. And no amount of criticism can steal it if you're already rooted. So you practice approval tonight, not of ego, but of effort. You say, I tried today, I showed up, I grew in small ways, and that is enough. Not because it's perfect, but because it's true. And then you let the rest go. You hand back what was never yours. Their stories, their lenses, their reactions. You imagine it floating out of your chest and into the night sky. You're lighter now. You lie back. You let your shoulders drop. You return to what's real. This breath, this moment, this quiet conversation with yourself. Unpolished, unfiltered, honest. And so you sleep, not for the world's approval, but for your own restoration. The night grows deeper now. The air feels heavier, quieter. And somewhere in the silence, you begin to imagine what it might have been like to try to sleep. As a Roman emperor, Marcus Aurelius, facing wars on multiple borders, plague inside his cities, betrayal within his own family, would lie down in a military tent, the ground cold, the sounds of soldiers shifting in sleep, the knowledge that tomorrow could bring revolt or retreat. And still he slept, not because the threats disappeared, but because he practiced with relentless discipline the Stoic art of separating what he controlled from what he did not. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." You let that line repeat in your mind like a chant, because tonight your worries aren't armies or conspiracies, but they feel just as urgent. You worry about bills or relationships or how that conversation might go tomorrow. And like Marcus, you realize most of these things aren't yours to command, but your thoughts, your internal response, those remain yours, no matter what world lies outside the tent. You imagine him now sitting before sleep with a scroll, writing not speeches but reminders to himself, not to others, to his own restless mind. This is what it means to be stoic, not to pretend life is calm, but to carve out calm within the storm. So you follow his lead. You name what is not yours to control tonight. You do not control how others act tomorrow. You do not control the pace of progress. You do not control what the world brings. You control this response, this breath, this decision to let go right now. Marcus called this inner citadel, the fortress of the mind that cannot be stormed unless you open the gates. You've been leaving the gates open all day, letting every news alert, every tone of voice, every possible scenario walk right into your mind and sit down at the table. But now the gates close, not with anger, not with denial, with clarity. You say, "You're not mine to manage, you're not mine to fix tonight." And then you return to the citadel, to the inner room where only your thoughts, your values, your attention are allowed. You remember how Marcus would examine his conscience each night, not to scold, but to understand. Not to rewrite the past, but to meet it honestly. Did I act in line with my nature today? Where did I slip into frustration, vanity, fear? And what would I do differently tomorrow? Not because I need to be perfect, but because I want to be aligned. You ask yourself the same questions now, gently, without judgment. And as you do, you notice this moment of reflection is calming you. You are no longer trying to win the day. You're trying to learn from it. You're no longer gripping the steering wheel of everything around you. You're placing both hands back on your own. Marcus knew that sleep was sacred, not because it meant escape, but because it meant return. Return to what is real, to what is within, to what is always available when the noise fades. You picture him extinguishing the lantern, folding his journal, lying back on a soldier's cot, not knowing what tomorrow brings, but trusting that he had prepared the only thing he ever truly owned, his character. You do the same. You whisper to yourself, "I've done what I could. I release what I cannot hold." And you notice what happens when you stop holding everything. Your breath lengthens, your thoughts slow, your body gives up the tension it's been clenching all day. You are not responsible for everything. You never were. That's not failure, that's freedom. The Stoics never promised ease, they promised strength. The kind of strength that stays soft. The kind of strength that lets you sleep, because it knows exactly what belongs to it. and what doesn't. So you lie still. You let the weight shift. You let the world be the world. And you rest inside your own. The body can feel like a battlefield some nights. The ache in your back, the tension in your chest, the exhaustion in your limbs. All reminders that you live in something fragile. Something that doesn't always obey your will. You want to feel better. To sleep without pain. To wake without worry. But even here in this vessel that carries you, you begin to see the Stoic lesson. The body is not fully yours to control, and yet you are not powerless. Epictetus, whose own body was broken by cruelty, his leg twisted so badly he limped for life, said plainly, "Some things are up to us and some are not. The body, not up to us, but how we use our minds, entirely ours." You hear that now in a new way. Your skin, your aging, your physical health, these are not entirely within your command. You can care for them, respect them, tend to them, but you cannot guarantee their cooperation. What you can do is decide what kind of companion your mind will be to your body. Tonight, maybe you feel discomfort, a restless tossing, a tightness you can't explain. You don't resist it. You meet it like a stoic, calm, curious, present. You say, "This is how my body feels," but it is not all of who I am. Marcus Aurelius knew this intimately. He suffered illness through many of his final years. As emperor, he had access to the best healers of Rome, and yet his health still declined. But his wisdom only deepened. He wrote, "Don't let your reflection on the whole sweep of life crush you. Don't fill your mind with all the bad things that might still happen. Stay with the present situation." And so you stay with the present, not with what your body might feel like tomorrow, not with what it used to feel like 10 years ago, just this moment. You listen to your breath. You scan for tension, not to fix it, but to acknowledge it. You say, "I feel this, and I remain free within it," because your choices, your values, your peace, they don't belong to your muscles or your bones. They belong to the space between stimulus and response. The space where all your strength lives. The Stoics never told you to ignore the body. They taught you to respect it without mistaking it for your identity. When the body betrays you through sickness, fatigue, or just a sleepless night, you return to what is unshakable. Your mindset, your integrity, your inner calm. You imagine Epictetus teaching students with humor and gravity, limping into the room without complaint. He had accepted what was not his to change. And in doing so, he became more powerful than those who ruled with swords. You let that image settle, and you reflect on how much time you spend fighting your own body, wishing it looked different, moved faster, felt younger, slept better. But what if tonight you dropped the war? What if you said, "This body has carried me through so much. It is not perfect, but it is worthy of care, not criticism." You soften around the pain. You loosen the grip on judgment. You offer yourself what Marcus offered himself. Gentleness, not weakness, not surrender, just the willingness to live inside this moment without adding unnecessary resistance. Because even now, if your body resists sleep, your mind doesn't have to resist the resistance. You are not the discomfort. You are not the restlessness. You are the one observing it with grace. And that grace becomes rest. You lie still and maybe your body still stirs. But your mind no longer flinches. You've accepted the limit of control here. And that acceptance is powerful. It says, "I won't punish myself for what I can't fix." It says, "I can hurt and still be at peace." It says, "I may not choose the condition, but I always choose the response." You're learning to live in the body like a guest who appreciates the space, even when it creaks or groans. You tend to it, but you no longer try to own it. And in that release, your mind finds a deeper stillness, the kind that doesn't wait for the perfect physical state, the kind that exists even when sleep is slow to arrive, the kind that reminds you, "I am not just this flesh, I am the flame inside it." So you breathe, you rest, you surrender, not as defeat but as wisdom, and you say one last time tonight, "My body is borrowed, my peace is not." You think back on a plan you made not long ago. Maybe it was for the day just past or the week ahead. It felt reasonable, even hopeful. You mapped it out, put things in motion, and still, something shifted. The meeting was canceled. The energy didn't show up. Someone else's decision rerouted your direction. You felt frustration rise, or maybe disappointment, maybe even shame, as if your worth was tethered to the outcome of a plan you never truly controlled. But now, in the quiet, you remember the Stoic teaching. You make your plans as if they depended entirely on you, but act knowing they rarely do. The Stoics didn't hate planning. Marcus Aurelius kept a strict daily routine. Seneca advised careful scheduling. Epictetus spoke often about intentional effort, but they always left room for disruption, because disruption isn't the exception, it's the rule. You lie back and examine today through that lens. What collapsed? What didn't unfold the way you hoped? Where did the plan fall apart? Then you ask the real Stoic question: did I cling or did I adapt? Marcus faced constant upheaval. An empire does not run smoothly. And yet, when the Danube campaigns were delayed, when generals defected, when his own health interfered, he didn't unravel. He adjusted. He reminded himself, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. So tonight you do the same. You reframe the missed opportunity not as failure, but as instruction. You see the plan not as a guarantee, but as a guideline. You soften around what didn't happen and start asking, what did this open up instead? Maybe today taught you patience. Maybe it revealed where your expectations were rigid. Maybe it allowed a new perspective to emerge. Because sometimes the collapsed plan isn't a threat, it's a pivot point. Seneca, writing to a friend, warned, fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling. So you ask, where have I been resisting the flow? You feel your jaw, your breath, your chest, the holding, the expectation. You didn't mean to grip so tightly, you just wanted things to go well. And that's human, but the Stoic knows. Attachment to outcome is the first thread in the tangle of distress. You remember now that your responsibility was never to ensure everything worked out. It was to show up fully, to give your best effort, to accept the results, not with resignation, but with quiet strength. Because when you resist reality, you multiply your suffering. But when you meet it with poise, you become flexible. And flexibility is not weakness, it is wisdom in motion. You bring to mind a time when something went wrong, but later revealed a hidden benefit. A path you never would have seen if the first door had stayed open. The Stoics didn't call that fate, they called it clarity. So you rest now, not because everything is resolved, but because you've stopped arguing with what is. You say the plan changed, but I didn't fail. I'm just learning how to move differently. You say the day didn't unfold my way, but I responded with dignity, and that's enough, and it is. Your peace is not in the execution of every plan. It's in the grace with which you adjust. Marcus reminds you that even emperors must pivot. Even the most powerful cannot script tomorrow. So what makes you think you should? You rest, not in control, but in composure, not in certainty, but in steadiness. And from that place you prepare again, not with tension, but with gentleness. You don't expect everything to go perfectly, you expect to meet it calmly, no matter how it goes. That's the Stoic stance, and in that stance, you lie back. You release the day's misfires, you forgive the mess, you let go of the idea that success means smoothness. Success for the Stoic means presence, integrity, return. So you return to what remains yours, your perspective, your conduct, your open heart. And from there, the path forward, whatever shape it takes, will be enough. The screen still glows faintly. Maybe you've just put the phone down. Maybe the urge to check one more thing still pulses at your fingertips. Messages, news, numbers, notifications, everything feels urgent now. But the Stoics would raise an eyebrow at that feeling. Seneca wrote, "You act like mortals in all that you fear and like immortals in all that you desire." He was speaking of time, the strange way we treat it, as if we have all the time in the world to chase desires but none to rest, reflect, or simply be. You carry that paradox with you. You postpone rest, joy, stillness because there's too much to do. But you panic when the day ends and you've run out of time. It's exhausting. So tonight you press pause, not on your life, just on the noise that pretends to be life. You return to Seneca's core message. Your time is not a commodity for others to spend. It is your most personal, most sacred possession. And it's slipping through your fingers each time you surrender it to what doesn't nourish you. Emails can wait. The feed will refresh forever, but your peace cannot. It's finite. And if you don't claim it now, someone else will. Seneca saw this in Rome. He saw busy men rushing from one appointment to the next, trying to appear important. And he called it what it was: distraction disguised as productivity. You've seen this too, in yourself, in others. The constant motion, the unwillingness to sit with quiet, the idea that rest is indulgent when it is, in fact, wise. So you lie back. You let your eyes close. You ask, what did I give my time to today that didn't deserve it? Not to judge, just to see. Because when you see clearly, you can choose differently. And that's what the Stoics always return to: choice. Not whether things happen, but how you respond. Not how much you do, but how much intention lives behind what you do. Seneca warned, people are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to wasting time, they are most wasteful of the one thing in which it is right to be stingy. Tonight you become stingy in the best way. You guard your rest. You protect your peace. You stop spending your evening energy on thoughts that don't serve you. What someone said online, not yours. What the news cycle stirs up, not yours. What the inbox demands at 10:47 p.m., absolutely not yours. You reclaim the evening, not as downtime, but as sacred time. Time to reflect, to release, to remember what's real. You didn't come here to answer every message. You didn't come here to stay caught in the loop of just one more thing. You came to rest, and resting isn't retreating, it's preparation for right action tomorrow. Seneca would ask, if you were dying tonight, would you spend your final hour refreshing your apps? Or would you want to meet yourself more honestly, more quietly, more fully? You already know the answer, so you breathe deeper now. You shut the mental tabs. You return to what matters. The breath, the warmth of the blanket, the space between one thought and the next. This is what Stoic rest looks like. Not laziness, not escape. Presence, priority, peace. You remember that no one else will protect your time for you. And no one else will give you permission to rest. That's your job, so you take it seriously. You whisper, I am not obligated to be available to everything all the time. You say, I do not owe my peace to the pressure of the world. And you mean it. The digital world will still be spinning in the morning, but tonight your world narrows, your world quiets. Your world belongs to you, because what you give your time to, you give your life to, and tonight you give it to rest. The word effort holds weight. It's praised, expected, rewarded. You've learned to value trying hard, working late, showing up early, pushing through, but effort can turn to strain, and strain to stress. And soon you're no longer acting from principle. You're performing from pressure. So tonight you examine effort through a Stoic lens. Because Stoicism doesn't tell you to stop trying, it tells you to stop clinging. Marcus Aurelius said it best. If you do the job in a principled way with diligence, energy, and patience, if you keep yourself free of distractions and keep the spirit inside you undamaged, then you're living a good life. He didn't say if you succeed. He didn't say if everything works out. The Stoic measure of effort is not the outcome. It's the quality of intention behind it. You think back to today, the things you did, the things you tried. Some may have gone well, some may have fallen short. But the Stoic question isn't, did I win? It's, was I aligned? That's where peace lives. Not in the result, but in the process done with clarity and sincerity. You picture Marcus, head bowed in a candlelit tent, writing after a long day of imperial decisions and moral compromises. He couldn't always control the outcomes of war or politics, but he could govern himself, and so can you. You shift the definition of success. Not to lower your standards, but to raise your alignment. You begin to see effort as sacred, not because it guarantees control, but because it reflects character. There's a difference between showing up and holding on. You may have tried to make someone like you, or fix something that wasn't yours to fix. or prove your worth in places that never deserved you. That's not stoic effort. That's expectation disguised as diligence. So tonight you peel them apart. Effort says, I will act in accordance with my principles. Expectation says, and I must get the result I want. Effort says, I showed up with honesty. Expectation says, and I should be praised for it. Effort says, I'm here to grow. Expectation says, I'm here to win. You feel the tension as you name it. The mental tug of war between intention and outcome. It's not wrong to hope things go well, but peace requires you to release the outcome after you've given your best. And that's what the Stoics practiced, effort without attachment. Seneca taught this too. He wrote, a wise man is content with his lot, whatever it may be, without wishing for what he is not. You let that sink in. You did what you could today. You chose what was within your power. You released what wasn't. And if you didn't, that's okay. This moment is your reset. Because effort is renewable. Control is not. You breathe in. You feel your body where it rests. You ask, where did I strain today? You don't scold yourself. You observe. Then you ask, where did I act freely with intention, even if no one saw? That's the moment worth remembering. That's the anchor. So you make a gentle promise to yourself. I will keep showing up with energy, care, and humility. I will not waste my peace chasing what is not mine to command. I will rest tonight knowing that effort is enough. And with that, something softens. You no longer demand that the world applaud. You no longer beg the outcome to arrive faster. You simply lie back, breathe, and let go. Because showing up with courage and principle is already a victory. Marcus Aurelius didn't ask himself, did I win the day? He asked, did I stay true to myself? And if the answer was yes, he rested. So now you do too. Some of the hardest moments to practice Stoicism aren't during conflict or disappointment or even pain. They're during love, when you care deeply, for a child, a partner, a friend, a team. You want to guide, to help, to protect. But care often crosses a quiet line, and suddenly, without noticing, you're trying to control their choices, their feelings, their outcomes. You start to believe that if you love enough, worry enough, try hard enough, you can shape someone else's path. But the Stoics knew better. Epictetus reminded his students, try not to react merely in the moment. Pull back from the situation, take a wider view. And when you do that, when you zoom out, you see clearly, influence is possible, control is not. You can raise a child with values, you can teach, model, encourage, but they will still choose their own path. You can lead a team with integrity. You can set expectations, hold space, but not everyone will follow. You can show up in love fully. You can give kindness, honesty, presence, but you cannot decide how someone receives you. This is painful, but it's also freeing. You feel it now. The way concern tightens your breath, the way it wraps itself around the people you care about. It feels noble, but it's still control. So you soften. You remind yourself, I am here to support, not to steer. I am here to offer, not to force. I am here to love, not to possess. You remember Marcus Aurelius writing about his children. He loved them dearly, but he didn't see them as extensions of himself. He saw them as independent souls on their own journeys. That's the Stoic way, love with open hands. You picture someone you've been worrying about. Maybe they're struggling. Maybe they're making choices you don't agree with. Maybe you just want to help, more than they want help. And so gently you ask, am I helping them? Or am I managing my own discomfort? Because often our need to intervene isn't about them. It's about our fear, our story, our version of how things should go. You take a breath. You choose to guide, not grip. You choose to lead, not push. You choose to trust, not tighten. Even now, your thoughts might say, but what if they fall? What if they get hurt? What if it all goes wrong? And the Stoic inside you answers, then I will be there, with compassion, with strength, with clarity. But I will not try to live their life for them. Seneca put it clearly. You must live for yourself. Others may accompany you, but your path is your own, and theirs is too. You let this truth settle deep. You release the weight you've been carrying for someone else. You say, I influence by example, not by control. Your calm becomes their mirror. Your patience becomes their safety. Your boundaries become their respect. You stop trying to fix. You start choosing to be fully present. Whether you're a parent guiding a child, or a leader mentoring a team, or a friend simply holding space, you return to this truth. You are not responsible for their choices, only your own. And that is more than enough. So you breathe in that space. You breathe in that freedom. You remember that letting go of control doesn't mean letting go of love. It means you finally make room for it to grow, unforced, unscripted, unattached. And in that release, you find rest. Not because the people you love are okay, but because you've remembered the difference between support and control. You lie back. You think of Marcus closing his journal after writing about nature, change, and family. He was emperor, but even he couldn't control the fate of those closest to him. So he turned inward, strengthened himself, and trusted the rest. You do the same now. You say softly, I am here, I am steady, I am love without control. And you let sleep come, not as escape, but as trust. There are nights when your mind insists on reviewing everything that went wrong. Not dramatically wrong maybe, but wrong enough to linger. An awkward exchange, a misstep in a project, a moment where your temper flared or your patience thinned. You lie there narrating it all again and again. And the mind says, let's fix it, let's relive it, let's rewrite it. But the Stoics would stop you gently and say, that moment is gone. What remains is your interpretation, and that you can still shape. Marcus Aurelius wrote, you always own the option of having no opinion. Things don't misrepresent themselves, only your judgments do. So tonight you explore what it means to let go of your own harsh judgments. Not the judgments of others this time, but yours. Because sometimes the person you try hardest to control, to fix, to criticize, and to shape is you. You revisit a moment from the day, one that didn't go how you hoped. You feel the wave of self-judgment rise. Why did I say that? Why didn't I prepare more? Why do I keep doing this? And then softly you pause. You ask, am I seeing this clearly? Or am I piling story on top of story? Maybe the moment was neutral, but your mind added commentary. Or maybe it really was a misstep, but your reaction has far outgrown the event itself. Either way, the Stoics offer a different approach. Marcus didn't shame himself when he slipped. He observed, he corrected, he moved forward. That's Stoic self-reflection. Not self-attack, but self-alignment. You sit with that now. You are not perfect. You are not supposed to be. You are a work in progress with full permission to evolve. You do not need to punish yourself into change. You can simply notice, that wasn't my best, and I'll try better next time. And then let it go. You don't need to carry every misstep to bed like a stone in your pocket. You can put it down. Seneca wrote, the greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today. You've been expecting yourself to perform without error, to never falter, to always know what to say, how to act, what to do. That's not Stoic, that's perfectionism. And perfectionism is a liar. The Stoic path is steadier, slower, kinder. It doesn't demand flawlessness, it demands practice. So you say, I practiced today, I made mistakes, I will practice again tomorrow. That's it. No spectacle, no spiral. Just the quiet confidence of someone who is growing in real time. You remember that even the wisest philosophers got frustrated, felt fear, lost their way. What made them Stoic was not how rarely they fell, but how quickly they returned to center. So you return to the breath, to the moment, to your deeper self, the one who sees mistakes not as failures but as feedback. You lie back lighter. You no longer need to replay the scene. You no longer need to tighten around regret. You've seen it, you've learned from it. Now let it go. You say, I am more than this one moment. I am the accumulation of effort and reflection. And that is enough. Tomorrow will come. You will have another chance to show up differently. But tonight is not for rewriting. Tonight is for resting in the knowledge that you are not your worst moments. You are the one who walks through them with awareness. And that's Stoicism. That's peace. You turn to the future, unwritten, unknowable, filled with possibility and threat. and you notice the mind beginning to drift forward. What if that conversation doesn't go well? What if the project fails? What if tomorrow brings more than you can handle? The future has always been a fertile ground for anxiety, but the Stoics called it something else: imagination untrained. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't let your imagination be crushed by life as a whole. Stick with the present situation and ask, why is this so unbearable? Why can't I endure it?" You let that wisdom find you now, because most of what you fear isn't real. It's possible. It lives in the future, built on fragile assumptions stitched together from worry and memory. You see it clearly. You've left the present. Your body is here, lying still. But your thoughts are 24 hours ahead, rehearsing catastrophe. So you come back, not with force, with breath. You say what is true right now. You're safe, you're quiet, you're doing your best. The future isn't in the room. Only your thoughts of it are, and those thoughts can be observed, questioned, let go. The Stoics didn't fear the future, but they didn't worship it either. They saw it as something shaped by present character, not controlled by present worry. Seneca reminded himself, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." How many hours have you lost to rehearsing things that never came? You picture it. A mind carrying around a bag of imagined burdens, rehearsing pain that never arrives. That's what anxiety does. It convinces you that feeling pain in advance somehow prepares you for what might come. But all it really does is exhaust you. So you choose something different tonight. You say, if hardship comes, I will meet it then with courage, not now with dread. You don't deny that tomorrow may bring challenge. The Stoics would never ask you to pretend. They would ask you to prepare, not through worry, but through wisdom. Epictetus said, "When something happens, the only thing in your power is your attitude toward it." So you prepare your attitude. You picture tomorrow not as a threat, but as a canvas. Not blank, not fully yours, but available. To shape, to meet, to respond to. And you say, whatever comes, I will meet it with what I have. Not because you're certain, but because you're steady. You stop trying to know everything in advance. You stop trying to pre-live tomorrow's problems. You stop wasting peace on what doesn't yet exist. And something loosens. The shoulders, the breath, the space behind your forehead. You've remembered that the future isn't a fact. It's a story. And you can choose how you write the opening lines. Not with panic, not with control, with presence. You whisper, tomorrow will come. But I am here now, and here I am okay. The Stoics return to this again and again, not because it's easy, but because it's essential. Anxiety cannot grow in a mind that is fully present, and presence is your practice now. So you rest, not because every unknown has been solved, but because you've stopped trying to solve the unknown with the wrong tools. You hold what is real, you release what isn't, and you remember your power begins and ends in this moment. That's enough. And it always has been. You lie quietly now, and something begins to stir beneath the surface. A slow recognition that the world moves with or without your permission. The weather changes, people shift, plans dissolve, you adjust. Sometimes willingly, sometimes with resistance. But always you're asked to move with life, not against it. This is the Stoics' secret harmony, living in tune with nature, not trees and rivers, though those too, but with the nature of change itself. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, observe constantly that all things take place by change. The universe loves nothing so much as to change the forms of things and to make new ones like them. You breathe that in, because something about change still feels threatening, especially at night when the day's illusions of control begin to fade. You wonder, what if this changes tomorrow? What if that doesn't last? And the Stoics would answer, of course it will change. That's the point. The question is, will you change with it? You remember a time you tried to force something to stay the same. Maybe a job, a relationship, a belief. You gripped it tighter, hoping your will could freeze it in place. But it slipped through anyway. And in the aftermath, once the grief passed, what remained was resilience. The quiet truth that you adapted, even when you thought you couldn't. That's the Stoic art, adjusting without breaking, bending without losing shape, You picture water now, flowing around rocks, finding new paths when old ones close. Nature never fights itself, it moves. Seneca wrote, "Fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling." You decide not to be dragged tonight. You say, "I am willing to move with life, even when I do not understand it." That doesn't mean you give up. It means you stop gripping things that don't belong to you. You let people grow and leave. You let roles end. You let yourself evolve. You become the kind of person who adjusts with grace. Like Epictetus, born into slavery, later freed, who built a philosophy not on bitterness but on adaptability. He couldn't change his past. He couldn't rewrite his body's pain, but he could reshape his response over and over again. That's what you practice now. You feel the tug of resistance, the desire to anchor something that's floating away. And instead of holding tighter, you breathe. You say, "This too may change, and I will meet it with steadiness." You look around your inner world and see what still clings. A title, a routine, a relationship dynamic, a version of yourself that no longer fits. And you ask, can I let this evolve? Not discard, not destroy, just allow it to shift. Because what resists change resists life, and what resists life resists peace. You soften. You allow the mind to open a little wider. You allow the body to release the frozen edges. You allow your story to be rewritten, gently, gradually. You are not a statue, you are a current. You are not meant to stay the same, you are meant to become. So when the unexpected arrives tomorrow, you remember this moment. You say, "I do not have to like it, but I can learn to live with it." You say, "I trust myself to navigate whatever this becomes." That's the Stoic stance, not bracing against the wind, but learning to walk in it. And with that, you sleep, not because everything is fixed, but because you've decided to stop fixing and start flowing. The night is long, and in its quiet stretches, you sometimes meet a deeper fear. What if I'm not enough? Not enough for the task, not enough for the people in your life. Not enough for the version of yourself you think you should be. It's a fear older than language, and it doesn't announce itself loudly, it whispers. You should be further along by now, you shouldn't have made that mistake. You should be stronger, smarter, calmer, better. And yet the Stoics would sit beside you in this moment, not to fix it, but to reframe it. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man of his time, wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." What if that same logic applied inward? What if your sense of inadequacy isn't based in truth, but in your estimate of yourself? In an impossible measuring stick you inherited without question. You sit with that. You reflect on who gave you this belief. A parent, a school, a culture obsessed with achievement. Somewhere along the way, you absorb the idea that your worth is conditional. But Stoicism offers a radical alternative. You are not your outcomes, you are not your image. You are your values in motion. You are your effort, your discipline, your growth, regardless of the scoreboard. Seneca said, "A man is as unhappy as he has convinced himself he is." That includes unhappiness born from constant self-judgment. You ask yourself gently, am I being fair to myself? You think of how much grace you'd offer a friend, how many times you've reassured someone else. You're doing the best you can. Be kind to yourself. And now you say it to your own heart. Because being stoic isn't about being hard. It's about being honest. And the honest truth is you've been growing quietly, even through your failures. You've shown up on days when it was easier not to. You've tried again after disappointment. You've practiced principles that don't always reward you immediately. That counts. Even the Stoics stumbled. Marcus confessed that he failed to keep his temper. Epictetus admitted he could be reactive. None of them claimed perfection. What they claimed was progress. And progress is enough. You lie still. You stop running the tally. You say, I am not behind. I am on a path. I am becoming day by day. You don't need to feel like enough to be enough. And because you are, you don't need to prove your worth tonight. You don't need to meet someone else's expectations. You just need to return to your own judgment. You ask, did I act with courage even in small ways? Did I honor what I believe in even quietly? Did I return to myself after drifting? If yes, then let that be your rest. If not, then let this be your turning point. Because the Stoic isn't afraid to fall short. The Stoic is only afraid of staying disconnected from their own inner compass. You've found yours again, in stillness, in reflection, in this moment. So you offer yourself not permission to stagnate, but permission to rest without shame. You whisper, I am not perfect, but I am real and I am growing. You whisper, I don't have to earn rest, I just have to return to alignment. And in that return, the fear softens. You are not a project to fix. You are a person to meet, with curiosity, with compassion, with discipline. So you meet yourself tonight, as you are, not who you think you should be. And you lie back, not to escape your flaws, but to embrace the full spectrum of your experience. You are enough, not because you've arrived, but because you've stayed in the process. The mind, left unattended, can slip into comparison. You think of someone else, someone who seems to have it figured out. Their confidence, their calm, their perfect answers, perfect mornings, perfect plans. And suddenly your own life feels smaller. You replay your day, your choices, and you wonder, why am I not there yet? The Stoics understood this pull. Even in ancient Rome, status, wealth, appearance, and power were everywhere. But Marcus Aurelius grounded himself with this. Ambition means tying your well-being to what other people say or do. Sanity means tying it to your own actions. So tonight you choose sanity over ambition. You release the need to match someone else's pace, someone else's highlight reel, someone else's story. Because Stoicism teaches you this hard truth. Comparison is a thief of peace, not because others shine too brightly, but because you've forgotten your own light. You breathe. You come back. You ask, what have I done today that reflects my values? Maybe no one saw it. Maybe it wasn't loud or impressive. Maybe it didn't make a ripple, but it was yours. You were kind to someone when it was inconvenient. You made a choice that cost you comfort but kept your integrity. You held your tongue when you could have lashed out. You rested even when guilt tried to stop you. That is your practice. That is your path. Seneca once wrote, "No man is crushed by misfortune unless he has first been deceived by prosperity." In other words, don't confuse someone else's appearance of ease with a lack of inner turmoil. You do not know what they carry. So tonight you stop measuring your inside by someone else's outside. You stop assuming you're behind. You stop assuming they're ahead. You stop assuming there's only one track to walk. The Stoics believed in one standard, virtue. Not praise, not comparison, not applause. Virtue. Are you becoming more honest, more resilient, more compassionate? Are you practicing patience, stillness, perspective? If yes, you are not behind. You are simply moving. Deeply. You lie back and imagine a forest, each tree growing at its own pace. One stretches high, another grows crooked, another remains low but strong. Not one of them envies the other. You are that tree, rooted, becoming, enough. So you say, I release the story that I should be somewhere else. You say, I reclaim the beauty of my own unfolding. Because Stoic peace doesn't come from outperforming others. It comes from outperforming your past self, quietly, steadily. You don't need to post about it. You don't need to explain it. You just live it. And that's more powerful than any comparison. You close your eyes. You stop looking sideways. You start looking inward. There is no one else you need to be. No milestone you need to prove. No timeline you need to hit. Only this moment. Only this practice. Only this peace. And it is enough. The quiet deepens. The pace of your thoughts slows. You're no longer tracing the day behind you or reaching toward the day ahead. You're here, now, with one final lesson to hold before sleep. Gratitude, not as a forced smile or empty routine, but as a deep Stoic recognition that everything you already have is enough. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't hanker after what you don't have. Instead, fix your attentions on the finest and best that you have, and imagine how much you would long for these if they weren't in your possession." You let that line echo through you. You think of your breath, steady, unnoticed, your limbs, tired but loyal. The roof above you, the people who love you, the lessons you've learned, the very ability to reflect like this. So much already exists, and the Stoics knew, peace isn't found in getting more. It's in remembering what you already have. Seneca taught this with clarity. He said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." You hear that not as a scolding, but as a reminder, because craving pulls you from presence. It creates a mirage just out of reach, and the more you chase it, the more you forget the richness already within your grasp. So tonight you pause the chase. You bring to mind 3 things, simple, real, that supported you today. A kind word, a nourishing meal, a moment of laughter, a decision you made aligned with your values. You name them, you feel them, you thank them. Not to perform gratitude, to practice it like a Stoic. Gratitude is not a list, it's a posture, a way of meeting the moment and saying nothing else is owed to me right now. This is already plenty. You let that settle into your chest. You're not pushing tonight, not asking life for more. You're saying, thank you, this is enough. And in that softness, you sleep. Because nothing else needs to be added. Nothing else needs to be solved. You've practiced wisdom. You've remembered what's in your control. You've let go of what isn't. That is the Stoic rhythm. Return, reflect, rest. The world will turn while you sleep. The things you can't control will keep unfolding. But your peace is already in motion, and it does not depend on how tomorrow goes. It depends on how you meet yourself right here. So tonight you whisper to the silence, I am grateful, I am grounded, I am at peace with what is. And that peace carries you gently towards sleep. And now, as the last moments of this reflection settle over you, let your breath lengthen. Let your muscles relax. There's nothing more to think through, nothing more to figure out. You've done what you could with this day, and that's all a Stoic ever asks of themselves. So much of life unfolds beyond your grasp, and yet, in the stillness of your thoughts, in the quiet sovereignty of your heart, you hold something untouchable. Your response, your perspective, your peace. Maybe today wasn't perfect. Maybe it was messy or mundane or unexpectedly heavy. That's all right. The Stoics never promised smoothness, they promised clarity. And in clarity, even the roughest days find meaning. Let your mind now drift, not with worry, but with trust. Trust in your ability to meet whatever comes. Trust in the rhythm of nature, in the strength you've remembered, in the calm you've chosen. Because peace isn't found at the end of the road, it's found in how you walk it, slowly, steadily, with care. So as you fade into sleep, take with you one last thought. You don't need to do more, be more, or solve more to be worthy of rest. You already are. Good night.